Well, there we have it, folks. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Out enjoying a ride, and I just clocked over 10,000 miles on my 21 Harley Davidson Pan America Special. So with 10,000 miles and just under 2 years of ownership with this bike, I feel like I can give a good, honest assessment of my overall thoughts and experiences with it so far. What I like about it, what I don't really like about it, and I wish I could tell you that all 10,000 miles have been trouble-free with no issues. I wish I could tell you that. So in June of 2021, I test rode this bike at a local dealership, and about a week later I was back there signing the papers and taking delivery of it. Now overall I love the bike, but there have been some bumps in the road so far with my overall ownership experience. The problem started with the after-sales support that I received from the dealership. Shortly after getting the bike, I took it back asking them to install an update that was released a little while ago. It was the one that enables the USB port on the side of the display to charge a device. Anyway, long story short, I had to fight and argue tooth and nail with the service manager before he would agree to do this update, saying that it wasn't something that they were supposed to do. And when they finally relented and installed the update, the technicians did not follow the instructions in the service bulletin and ended up rendering the bike to where it would not start. Thankfully, they were able to get in contact with Harley's tech services, get that resolved. I was back on the road the next day. The next issue came several months later. I'm out enjoying a ride, and out of nowhere, the bike just shut off and died on me. Now, thankfully, I wasn't going all that fast, and I was able to coast and pull off to a safe spot. After waiting a couple of minutes, I was able to get the bike to restart, and I immediately rode straight to that dealership. Having the bike die like that on me, that was frustrating enough. But when I bought the bike, I kind of went into it knowing that there's some risk of being a beta tester whenever you're buying a first-year brand new model. But it was the treatment from the dealership again that infuriated me. When I went to the dealership and I'm explaining to the service writer what had happened, he basically shrugged his shoulders at me, and his response was, well, I don't know what to tell you. You can just take the bike home and see if it happens again, or you can leave it with us. Don't think we're going to be able to fix it. Have no idea what's going on with it. And he said this without even looking at it, without pulling up any codes, nothing. So needless to say, again, I was furious, and at that point had decided that this dealership is never touching this bike again. I took it home. And thankfully for me, I have not had any other issues with the bike shutting down like that since that one time about 1.5 years ago. All right, now we fast forward about 1 year until the next issue popped up. What had happened is the tabs on the exhaust header here that hold on this heat shield had busted off. Now for this issue, I took the bike to a different local dealership and was immediately impressed with the difference in customer service. They had a welcoming attitude. I showed them the issue, and they had ordered a new replacement header, one that was updated with stronger mounting tabs to address that issue, took care of it, and sent me on my way. Now, another issue with the bike that I was dealing with from time to time was this. Come on. The bike would sometimes not fire up on the first push of the starter button, especially if it's been running for a while. And I had just come to accept it as an annoying, if sometimes embarrassing quirk. It always started up on the second push of the button. An updated starter clutch was released by Harley Davidson to address that issue and to make it easier for the starter to turn the motor over. So I went back to my new dealership, and this time, however, the technicians were not able to reproduce that issue, and they were not able to get approval to do the warranty work just based off of seeing my videos. I even called Harley's corporate customer care line to see if they could help. And according to them, my motorcycle that was made in May of 2021 already has this updated part that was released in early 2022. How's that work? And they were no help and just directed me to work with the dealer. Now, while this was going on, temperatures were getting colder, right? Winter was approaching. And so my start attempts in the morning were getting more and more like this. Back at the dealership, letting them see this, letting them have the bike overnight to reproduce that issue, they did finally get the approval to replace the starter clutch with the updated part. So it didn't have it as it left the factory is what you're saying now. And since doing that, I've not had any more failed start attempts, no matter how long I'm riding, no matter how cold the temperatures have been when I've tried to start the bike in the morning. Fires up every time. Don't even have to leave it on the tender every night. So I'm enjoying my bike again, and a few months go by, and at about 8,500 miles, I hear this sound. Yep, that is the fuel pump priming, and no, it should not sound like that. Now, it didn't do that every single time I started it, only did it a couple of times. I was quite lucky to capture one of those times on video. But even when it was quiet on startup, after riding for a while, you could start to hear a loud pitch whine coming from the fuel pump. Back to the dealership, technician heard it too and agreed that no, that's not normal. And even though it passed the test for delivering the right amount of fuel pressure, they were able to get approval to replace that fuel pump. Ordered it, replaced it, sent me on my way. No problems, no issues. And that's where I'm at so far. One crappy dealership service department, one mystery shutdown while riding, broken heat shield tabs on the exhaust, replaced starter clutch, and a new fuel pump. To be fair, none of these issues left me stranded out on the road. And I know that there are other Pan America owners that have had zero issues at all, and there have been some other owners that have had much more serious issues than me. Things happen, that's what warranties are for. But to me, what makes or breaks the ownership experience is how the company, and by extension, their dealer network, handles these issues for the customer. And in that area, I think there's a lot of inconsistency from dealer to dealer and within Harley's own customer care service department. Okay. So service issues aside, let me talk about the bike itself. And since I'm on a roll here with negativity, let me start out with the things that I don't like about the Pan America. First, there's some annoying little things with the switches. For example, the turn signal switch doesn't have good feedback, and I question why the on and off for the cruise control had to be a 2-position rocker switch instead of just a single push button that you can toggle. And little things like the windshield mechanism and the plastic rear grab handles make an otherwise quality machine feel kind of cheap. My next complaint is the Bluetooth and navigation integration. The navigation on this bike works by pairing your phone with the bike and using Harley's Ride app for navigation, which then displays on the main screen of the bike. Now, I do like having the map on the large display of the bike, and I like how it overlays your speed and your current gear and stuff like that along with the map. But the navigation app is kind of buggy, and it's lacking many basic features that you'll find in dedicated navigation apps like Rever and Scenic, or even Apple and Google Maps. I really wish Harley would have just integrated Apple CarPlay and Android Auto rather than trying to create their own navigation app and let riders use the apps that they already have. When you pair your phone and your Bluetooth headset both to the bike, it activates and lets you use these media control buttons to control your music, control your volume, activate your Hey Siri on your phone or whatever you may have. With the cardio units that I have though, the connections would always keep cutting in and out, no matter what I tried. I've tried doing firmware updates on my Bluetooth units, I've tried different Bluetooth units, and I just gave up trying to make it work. And I now just have my phone connected directly to my headset. The bike's not in the picture anymore. Makes all these buttons useless. Now, all of these are just minor annoyances really compared to one aspect about this bike that I really do not like. My biggest gripe about the Pan America is the kickstand. To start with, the kickstand's just too far forward on the bike for shorter riders like myself. And even though I added an extension to the tab to help me reach it, I still struggle sometimes, especially if I'm not on level ground. I also need to lean the bike to the right a bit in order to deploy and retract the kickstand without it hitting the ground, which again is a struggle for riders with shorter legs. And the other issue with the kickstand is how Harley has it lock in place so that it cannot roll off of the kickstand as the bike moves forward. In theory, that's not a bad idea. That's how they have the kickstand on their cruisers and touring bikes as well. But in order for a stand like that to work, the bike has to lean over even further to engage that lock, making for some sketchy situations if you're not parked on level ground. At best, the kickstand is functional but annoying on level ground. And at worst, it is a complete nightmare on slope surfaces and uneven off-road surfaces. All right, so enough gripes and negativity. Let's talk about what I really like about my Harley Davidson Pan America. First, I like that it's unique. I like that Harley didn't stick with any of their traditional design elements when building this bike. The looks, I found them a little odd at first, but to be honest, they've grown on me over time. I kind of like it. Now, even though I currently own 2 Harley Davidson motorcycles, I don't really consider myself to be a Harley guy, if you will. I've had other brands of motorcycles, and I currently still do have a few other Japanese brand bikes in my garage. However, a little bit of hometown pride does come into play, if you will, because I live in York, Pennsylvania, where Harley Davidson builds their US motorcycles. And Harley Davidson and their local suppliers are a big part of the local economy. And it feels kind of neat to be riding a bike that local folks had a hand in building. I also like how the Pan America, with all of its power and performance potential, is still, in my opinion, very manageable, very approachable, and is quite confidence-inspiring with its handling. As I mentioned, I'm a shorter rider, so one of the features that sealed the deal for me on this bike is the adaptive ride height. The adaptive ride height is the optional feature that lets this bike lower an inch or so as it comes to a stop to help shorter riders get a little bit more of their feet in contact with the ground for stability. Now, I'm only 5'6". ARH is not quite enough for me to get both feet flat on the ground, but it does make a difference and lets me feel a bit more stable as I'm stopped, especially if the ground slopes in one direction or the other. To talk about my most favorite thing about this bike, we need to go for a ride. Because it's out here on the road where everything just kind of comes together and makes it just a joy to ride. A wonderful balance of performance, handling, and comfort that leads to an awesome riding experience on any type of road. Whether you're cruising on winding backcountry roads, covering some miles on the highway, navigating through small towns, or enjoying the thrill of twisty mountain switchbacks. Even on pavement that is less than ideal, the 7.5 inches of suspension travel soaks up the bumps so you can still enjoy the ride. And when the pavement ends, the fun continues with confidence-inspiring handling on dirt and gravel roads that encourages you to go exploring in places most folks would not dare to take their street touring machines. So, is my Harley Davidson Pan America perfect? Not quite. Do I wish dealing with dealership service departments was less hassle? Definitely. But I think the biggest question I can ask myself to sum it all up is, if I could go back and do it all over again, would I still buy this bike? Absolutely. Because for me, it all comes down to one thing, what I call the smile factor. Because when I'm out riding, I forget about those little annoying things like mushy turn signals, a shaky windscreen, and a kickstand that I can't reach. Because no matter what kind of road I'm on, or if I'm not even on a road at all, you twist the throttle, push on the handlebar, and you just smile. The bike is such a joy to ride.
Because I mean, after all, isn't that the point?